You are a hologram. That's what the most cited paper in theoretical physics says. Everything you experience is solid three-dimensional reality. The chair you're sitting in, the room around you, your own body, is a projection of information encoded on a two-dimensional surface that we can't see or touch. The physics community now treats this as one of the most fundamental properties of reality. Isaac Newton secretly studied a text in the 1680s that said the same thing. He produced his own translation but never published it because it would have ended his career. His handwritten copy is in King's College Library at Cambridge, right now catalogued as Keynes MS 28. The text is 14 lines long, and no one really knows where it came from. It's called the Emerald Tablet. In 1993, Gerard de Hooft was working on what happens to information when something falls into a black hole. All of his analysis kept taking him back to the same place. All the information needed to describe everything inside of a three-dimensional region of space, every particle, every event, can be completely encoded on its two-dimensional boundary surface. Like a hologram, like a flat piece of film strip that carries a three-dimensional image. He was saying that the universe works the same way. Leonard Susskind at Stanford formalized the mathematics 2 years later, and his paper was called The World as a Hologram. He said the three-dimensional world of ordinary experience, the universe filled with galaxies, stars, planets, houses, boulders, and people is a hologram, an image of reality encoded on a distant two-dimensional surface. In 1997, Juan Maldacena at Harvard published a precise mathematical proof of this called the ADS-CFT correspondence. It became the most cited paper in the history of theoretical physics with over 20,000 citations, and 't Hooft won the Nobel Prize for this research in 1999. The chair that we're sitting in, the screen that we're staring at, and the room that we're sitting inside of. If these physicists are right, none of that is their fundamental layer of reality. It's just a projection. Information encoded somewhere else playing out in a dimension that comes from something more basic. David Bohm arrived at this same place 30 years earlier working with quantum mechanics, and physics mostly ignored him. Oppenheimer was his doctoral advisor, and he worked on the Manhattan Project. He spent years as one of Einstein's closest colleagues in the 1950s, and he started looking at quantum entanglement and asked a question that was avoided. What if the particles that appear separate aren't really separate at the level that matters? What if the separation we see is a surface feature, and underneath is a deeper reality where nothing is separate at all? I had to think about that one for quite a while because I wasn't really sure what he meant. He called the surface world the explicate order. The deeper connected reality underneath he called the implicate order. He said everything is enfolded into everything. Every region of space, however small, contains the whole. He also said the most basic elements of the implicate order were mind-like, that consciousness was woven into the surface of that deeper reality from the beginning, not something that matter accidentally produced over billions of years. Then the holographic principle arrived from black hole research decades later and described the same fundamental architecture from a completely different direction. And now for the tablet. The Emerald Tablet is said to be a stone tablet, emerald green, inscribed with secrets of the universe. The physical object has never been found. We don't have an emerald green piece of stone with text on it. What survives is just the text, passed down through manuscript copies across more than 1,000 years. The oldest version we can confirm is from Arabic sources from the 8th or 9th century. It may be older. Some researchers trace it to the Egyptian or Hellenistic origins, but the earlier trail isn't clearly established. The legends around it are extraordinary. The most common says it was found in a sealed tomb beneath the statue of Hermes Trismegistus in Tyana, clutched in the hands of the corpse of Hermes himself. Another says Alexander the Great found it during his march into Egypt. Another says Sarah, the wife of Abraham, found it near Hebron. Another places it aboard Noah's Ark. Every true alchemist in the history of Western thought went through this text. Roger Bacon, Albertus Magnus, John Dee, Carl Jung, and Isaac Newton, the man who gave us the laws of motion, gravity, and calculus, who spent 30 years privately studying alchemy and left behind hundreds of pages of notes, including his own English translation of the Emerald Tablet, that the economist John Maynard Keynes purchased at auction in 1936 and kept in a private vault for decades before donating them to Cambridge. Newton never published any of this. He really couldn't. The founder of modern physics spending his life on this would have been the end of everything that he built. And that whole text really comes down to one line. To which is below is like that to which is above, and to which is above is like that to which is below. As above, so below. The volume encoded on the boundary, the three-dimensional world as a projection of a two-dimensional surface, the whole enfolded in every part. Three physicists, Bohm, 't Hooft, and Susskind, spending decades deriving that description of reality using mathematics that didn't exist until the 20th century. The text is attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice greatest, a figure combining the Greek Hermes and the Egyptian Thoth. In the alternative research tradition, Thoth maps to Ningishita, Enki's son in the Sumerian texts. The figure described as keeper of sacred knowledge who moves through multiple civilizations under different names, each time bringing the same foundational understanding of reality. But whether that actually holds or not doesn't really change the question that the tablet raises. The physical object has never been found. Its origin can't be traced beyond the 8th or 9th century with certainty. Every attempt to identify who wrote it runs into the same wall, a figure that existed across multiple cultures simultaneously, created with knowledge that no single civilization of that era should have had access to. And the knowledge itself, as above so below, the structure of the whole reflected in every part, the macro encoded into the micro, turns out to be what physics independently derived 2,000 years later as the most fundamental property of reality. Newton spent 30 years on this in private. Carl Jung spent years on it as well. The greatest minds of every century that encountered it took it seriously enough to give it their private time. And even after all that, none of them can fully explain where it came from or what it actually was. Maldacena's paper has over 20,000 citations. Hooft won the Nobel Prize for the physics that underlies it. And the line that they spent decades proving mathematically was written down in a greenstone tablet by someone who may not have even been human, in a form short enough to survive thousands of years of translation without losing the idea. Before Bohm, before Hooft, before Susskind, before any of the mathematics existed to verify it. If you are a projection of information encoded on a surface that you can't see, if the room you're sitting in right now is the holographic output of something more fundamental, then the Emerald Stone tablet isn't describing something magical, it's describing physics. And it was written before we discovered any of the mathematics to prove it. What do you think? Are we all just holograms? Is this universe a hologram? Is this microphone a hologram? I wouldn't rule anything out anymore, I guess. I recently saw a video of 20-plus spacecraft taking off from the moon that were 40 meters across. If I can believe that those are aliens or ancient versions of ourselves that have been developing tech for an eternity, I would have to at least believe that this is a possibility. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your time and the support that I've gotten for this channel. I'm looking to continue this and expand and make longer form stuff, and I got lots of plans for down the road that I'm trying to work on, but I will get there, I promise. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.